controls back where they belong. Put those props back.
Nothing doing, Skipper.
That's an order.
Hang on, chum. You can do it. Now fly. Let me pray.
Run out of gas right over San Francisco.
Well, let's try it this way for a while. Don't be so anxious to go for a swim.
Welby, check your final position. I'm going to take her down.
Wait a few more minutes, Skipper.
Do as I say.
But it looks like...
Do as I say.
Give him a few more minutes.
I've already waited too long. Here we go.
No, we don't.
Get a hold of yourself, you yellow.
You're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. It's how all great aviation tales begin. RePete here, and I'm chatting with Fig in the preamble. We were joined this week by a friend of ours, Nightmare.
Nightmare. Great interview. Felt like I had done 50 crunches before the first 2 minutes were over.
Right? Right. Opened right up with how he got his call sign. He thinks it was kind of boring. I think it was kind of funny because it's so very true. And the good news for him was he didn't get his call sign another way, which, you know, he could have.
Right.
Could have been Splash, could have been Swimmer.
Yes.
You
Yes,
know?
you're alluding to him jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, except for the fact that, what'd you say? Oh, it had no hydraulics or the engine wasn't running.
Yeah, no engine, no fuel flow, no hydraulics, therefore no flight controls. Other than that, it was a good airplane.
It was perfectly good.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about that was he holds the record for the longest free fall in a Harrier before going ahead and pulling the handle. He was reluctant to do so, and I don't blame him. He was out over the Atlantic Ocean. So, you know, what was the old Bill Cosby joke? How long can you tread water, right? I mean,
That's right.
It was going to be a while.
So when he told us that story, my palms were sweating for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because I was there. You know, I was there.
Absolutely. But they were able to notify everybody. He was picked up by a couple who were sailing from Florida to Massachusetts on their sailboat. They pulled him out of the drink, and he waited there for a boat to come get him. And then he got over to a helicopter, got a look at his airplane in the marsh, which that was funny in and of itself. He was out over the ocean. He ejects. The airplane turned inland and lands in the marsh. Thank God it didn't hit anybody, huh?
If I recall, he on purposefully pointed the airplane away so it wouldn't possibly hit anybody, and after he jumped out, it turned.
It turned right inland and stabilized. You know, it was going down like a brick, and he jumps out and it stabilizes and heads right over land. And
of course.
So the good news, he got out. He was fine. He literally was in the O Club that evening having a beer. And as he said, they were the biggest thing to hit Lakehurst, New Jersey since the Hindenburg. So, and then he was flying 3 days later, which is unheard of in today's Marine Corps.
No, that would never happen today.
No. And I get it. You know, you got to cross all your T's and dot all your I's, which he was good about that too. He was the commanding officer of the training squadron, the RAG, and a student jumped out of the airplane, and at first they thought he was dead. And they, you know, people were like, well, are you going to go tell his wife? She said, no, we're going to get all the facts first. And it turned out student wasn't dead, so it's a good thing he didn't go tell his wife. And but they found out he was alive and okay, and said, are you going to go tell his wife? He's like, no, we're going to get all the facts first. And so that was a good thing he did. You know, make sure you have all your information before you run over and tell the wives. Because in all likelihood, as we talked about in this episode, the wives already know about it anyway. They know who's who and what's what long before any one of the official channels do.
That's a hell of a security network right there.
In the world's smallest cockpit.
It is indeed. So, well, what do you say, Fig? I think we get out of the way. Let episode 49 come. Listen to Nightmare. Sit back, relax. Don't sit on the ejection handle.
Don't do it.
It can only end badly. It's Nightmare, y'all.
Enjoy.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, running out of airspeed, altitude, and ideas.
Which is how all great aviation tales begin. Welcome. This is Fig coming to you from Kansas City. And where are you today, my friend, my co-host, RePete?
I am in New Hampshire. I'm home in New Hampshire for a couple more weeks, then they're going to make me go back to work again. What an outrage.
Don't say that four-letter word again. Do not say it again today.
Right.
It's Saturday. Let's not
Exactly.
talk like that.
Exactly. Enjoying the weekend with a fine naval aviator, a fine Harrier pilot,
Outstanding.
Nightmare. And I don't think he got that call sign as an instructor. He had it well before that. So welcome,
Okay.
Nightmare. And how'd you get that call sign?
Yeah.
Good
How
to
did
hear.
you get Nightmare?
You know, I have been asked that question for 37 years, and rarely do I answer it. Because it's a good call sign to have,
Yeah.
Sure
but
it
it's
is.
a real boring way I got it.
Oh,
So down in Beeville, Texas, I was going through, we were in TA4s. There was graduating class of maybe about 20, 25 of us to get winged the following week. And on Saturday, we were all going to do our night air nav, solo, take off, fly around, don't get lost, land safely, and you're done. So there are two waves. First wave went out. They came back. The sailors turned all the planes around, and we signed for a jets and walked on out. And I pre-flighted one. It had a broken hide line. Pre-flighted the second one. It had something wrong with it. I think it had no O-bods. The third one I got in, started up, and the student behind me had seized the brakes, so it didn't go anywhere. Well, 3 strikes and you're out because the student is so scared and overwhelmed at that point, he's got to go home. So I went home. Everybody else went out and got their flight done. So there's one guy that's going to graduate in a couple of days, and he needs one more flight. So Sunday, they opened the airfield up. They brought in ATC, Crash Fire Rescue, the squadron, everybody. And this is September. So I go through the instructor, the briefs. I go suit up. I'm walking up the flight line. And at the far end of the flight line where my bird was, there's a petty officer out there. And he screams out, "Oh no, here comes our worst nightmare." And the ODO, the instructor's up on the fire escape sitting out because it's a South Texas September day.
Absolutely.
And
nothing turning
get-
on the ramp, so it's quiet. That he hears
it's dead quiet. There's nothing for 100. There's nothing unless you can get to Randolph.
Right.
So I get in, I fire up the plane, go through the checks. I'm taxiing. I key the mic. Hey, base, Charlie, 22's taxiing. Roger, Nightmare, have a good flight. And
Boom.
Nightmare for about 38 years.
That's awesome.
Nice. Nice. I
That's
think
the
you were
worst
going to take that airplane. As long as it wasn't on fire, I think you were taking that airplane.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's where you got your wings. How'd you get interested in aviation, and what was your commissioning source?
My old man was a Marine, A4 driver. He started in FJ Furies and then did 20 years. Was CEO of 211 out in the Oconee back in the early mid-70s.
Nice.
And so I grew up from day one. I was going to fly single seat light attack. And it worked out. I mean, everyone goes to college. I want an education. I want this. I said, okay, number one, I got to become a Marine officer. Got to get a college degree, and just backed up from there. And to get through college, of course, being lazy and broke, I put in for an ROTC scholarship. I was lucky enough to get a 4-year scholarship, and went to Villanova on that. Got commissioned, check. Got through flight school, check, and got the aircraft I wanted. So I guess it was sort of in my blood.
Outstanding.
It all worked out.
Yeah. Start with a plan in mind. Start with the end in mind, right? Isn't that what Nasty said?
Make a plan, brief the plan, fly the plan.
There you go. As long as you don't break 3 jets.
Oh, I broke it more than that.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
Wait, hey, when did you? So was the Aviate your first choice out of flight?
It was. I had our senior Marine at VT-24 was a old F4 fighter guy. He had recently transitioned to the F-18, and he took me up on all my air-to-airs. So you put in your dream sheet, your first 3 choices, and my choices were Aviate, A4, F-18. And he called me in the office, closed the door, and started reading me the riot act. I'm like,
All right.
"What do you mean? You're going to go fighters, da, 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 da." So, no, I'm not. I said, I'm not fat enough to need 2 engines. I'm not dumb enough to need 2 heads. I'm not going fighters. And so I ended up getting Harriers.
All right. And what year was that?
That was 1985. I got winged in September of 85 and got to 203 that November.
Nice. Nice. Okay. And then from 203, that was the RAG. You finished there and was 331 your first gun squadron? Because I know you were there for the war.
I got to 331 late spring, I believe it was, of 86.
Okay. So you were there for a long time then, because you went to the first.
I was there through Desert Storm.
Yeah.
After Desert Storm, we got back in April of 91, and then I went to 203 for my first tour there.
That was a long squadron tour.
It was. I wasn't supposed to go to. I was transferring to 203 after we did a UDP to Iwakuni for the end of '89.
So you were there for the Lieutenant Savoy incident.
I was part of a lot of those incidents. Yes. And then I got orders to 203 in the summer. That summer, and I had about 4 days there. And Saddam invaded Kuwait.
Right.
And the 331 CO, I guess the word I was at, he was called up to the general and said, "Your squadron is deploying. Who do you need for personnel?" And the skipper gave him a list, and I happened to be on it, so I got recalled back to 331 to fill that up.
So you,
you
Woody, Lawman, was Manny in that group too?
It was Buick, Lawman, Oscar, Scorch, Smitty, Buckwheat initially, Mystic the CO, Easy the XO. Boy, it was.
That's a lot of legends you just named.
I think it was the A team. Yeah. Every squadron that was there, 542, 231, Real, they'll say they have the A team. We really had the A team.
Yeah. So
it was a good crowd. We all got along too.
RePete, you know what I'm picking on here, and every one of those gun squadrons recalled all their gunfighters, and that's how we ended up in 223 because there was nobody there.
We were brand new, yeah. Nobody was there. That's when Trip got handed a big bag of newbies and said, "Here, make them combat ready."
Especially the East Coast Harrier guys. You guys got, timing's 90%.
Timing is everything,
you guys
right?
Got the Royal Ream.
Absolutely.
Well, we got to watch all you guys on CNN taking off and coming back from missions.
Yeah.
Those guys are doing everything that we wanted.
That looks cool.
Yeah. So that was a long time though. So, but even before you went to 203, so you were there for.
I was there for
almost 4 years, right?
Maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that wasn't all that abnormal back then, but I think the 91 timeframe that changed and people started doing like 3-year tours max.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, we had a good crowd there. And of course, as a squadron, we did a UDP right into the Desert Shield thing. So yeah, you always get a little tighter on deployment because you don't have mom and the kids to worry about running home to every day.
Right.
So we were pretty tight knit.
Hey, nice. I want to back up a second and ask you, your flight training days, any memorable oh shit stories that, I can't believe I lived through that, or something that you'll never forget because it was funny from flight school?
I know I got one down, and it was my very first simulator in a T2. And
how do you do that?
That final approach fix, that's for the average pilot. I must have gone through that at about 350 knots. I didn't know it because I wasn't very good at it because it's just a simulator. And there's a thing that was on the throttle. It's called a speed brake button. And if you actually engage it, put the speed brakes out, the damn thing slowed down.
Weird.
But for the life of me, I could slow that simulator down that day. But it was training for me was pretty routine, I guess. I went through, I guess it was about 18, 19 months from the time I started T-34s to the time I got winged.
Yeah.
I had very little slack time. My longest delay, I think, was 1 week, and that was between Milton, Florida, and Beeville, Texas.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I did have one thing with, not funny looking back, and it probably really wasn't funny that day, but I got married to my practice wife while I was in Beeville, and we had set up to go on a honeymoon and everything, and all that's good. And we got married in October, so Columbus Day, I guess, the long weekend, 3 days.
Okay.
The Wednesday before I was flying home, I think Thursday, or the day before I was flying home, the instructors called me and say, "By the way, Riggs, you're going to have to cancel your leave. We need you back here Tuesday because we need to fly. You can't let your class get behind. I said, ooh, okay, got it. So I go home, get married, fly back to San Antonio, drive to Beeville on Monday. Welcome to the Marine Corps. Tuesday, I'm not on the schedule. Wednesday, I was assistant ODO. Thursday, I was assistant ODO. And Friday, they said, okay, Sunday, the C9 is going to be here to fly the base football team up to Meridian to take part in the VT football intramurals. So I went to Meridian for a weekend. Practice wife was not pretty pleased since we canceled our honeymoon. So I had to fly, and I did fly for 3 weeks.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And I had no leg to stand on.
Did you say VT football team?
Yeah, VT 24 had one, 25 had one, and then the Kingsville Squadrons had one, and Meridian had one, and there was a annual intramural football playoff.
I have to ask my favorite
flag
question.
Football?
Flag football.
Still, I have to ask my favorite question.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong? Twisted knees, broken arm.
What could go wrong? I mean, she's my son's mother, but my practice wife.
Oh, yeah. And then there's that. Damn it.
Right? Exactly. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about that, and it just completely slipped. Oh, that's what I know what I wanted. I wanted to break in and tell our non-naval aviator listeners who have never gone to Navy flight school, every flight you go out on, you're graded on a whole myriad of things, and it's checklist usage and head work and maneuvers and approaches, that kind of stuff. And you're graded as above average, average, below average, or unsat. So that's what a down is, an unsat. What you get to repeat the flight. So that's special, that whole grading system. So every flight was a test.
And speaking about grades, I just did think of something when you mentioned grading.
Okay.
A4s, TA4s, getting ready for the boat. FCLPs, we went to Goliad. They almost didn't let me go to the boat. I was so bad. They actually would write down John Wayne and the break, Woody Allen on the ball. I was, I mean, I came in pretty good, but then trying to get that damn thing down where you wanted it to, I couldn't. So then we went out to North Island and landed on the Enterprise. And we got delayed there for 2 weeks. B-Bill guys were the first ones to go, or C9 broke down. So we were stuck, having already qualified for a week. We go back to get the C9 and we're sitting in the terminal there at North Island, and people calling me, Riggs, congratulations. I'm like, congratulations for what? You got the hook, man. You got the golden tail hook. You did the best out of all of us. I'm like, you guys are kidding, man. I hope I just passed. There's no, you passed. And it's true. They gave me the golden tail hook, and I was awful on the ball. So I pity all those sailors that got winning with me. Hopefully they all ended up going C2s or E2s.
Wow.
Stay away from the boat.
That?
Yeah. And then, of course, I fly a plane that didn't need the hook.
Right. We stop and land.
But you got that plaque.
Yeah, I got that little paper certificate.
Nice.
Somewhere.
Got
Very
the gold
cool.
hook, baby. Okay, so what was the my experience at the RAG was it was so one of the RAG instructors said, the reputation of the Harrier RAG was we eat our own, and it was you had some guys that were really ornery, and some that were totally chill. What was your experience going through the RAG there, Nightmare?
When I went through, there were 6 guys in my class, and there was really one class going through at a time. And the instructors I have, I mean, you're a student, you're a first lieutenant, and these guys are captains that have flown the Aviate-A. The single seat at 203 when I went through was all Aviate-Bs, and the 2-seaters were all T-Aviate-As. So we did FAMs in the T-Aviate-A. I think we did 10 flights or maybe 11 flights in a 2-seater. And then they sent us to solo with the B. And all the instructors I dealt with I had no problems with them. They wanted you to learn. They wanted to teach you.
Good.
And the ones with an attitude, I really didn't see during the time I went through. We had our CLO Bambi was great. And he had a a team of instructors that it's sort of like, yeah, I hope someday I could have a team like that, because they were all pretty good.
Nice.
Well, that's good.
Oh, that's good news. So did you change that attitude when you became commanding officer of the
I
squad?
tried to get it back to the old way of
Yeah.
life, but times had changed and we got
Weed
more
these guys
nice
out.
and kind of more sensitive, so I couldn't. They wouldn't let me.
What an outrage.
So, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I still remember what the first time I ever gave. I gave 2 unsets as an instructor in the Harrier, and the first one I gave. Do you remember this? You and I were out on a night bombing mission.
Okay.
You okay? Clearly, you don't remember it, and
I
that's
know
okay.
I did a lot of
There's
night
things in
bombing.
life
I know
that you
this
remember,
story.
things you don't. But yeah, so we're out on a night bombing mission, and I'm leading, and you had a student in a T-bird, and I had
Just a 30-degree dive in T's.
yes, and it was nighttime. And
Yeah.
anyway, the long and short of it is the student was solo in a single seat -4, and he passed you in the bombing pattern. So we
Cut me
came
off.
back, and you said, "Well, you going to give him the down, or am I?" I'm like, "No, I got it. I'm the flight lead." So that was my first unset.
Downs were always hard to get, but normally it was cut and dry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's,
yeah.
that's black and white right there.
right, yeah.
I had one kid that was doing a decel to the south pad. And a decel, you slow down, and then the guy in the front seat says, "I'm going to hover stop," where he brings the nozzles to the vertical position. And then you just sort of slowly bleed off, increasing your throttle to increase thrust. So you balance the aerodynamic lift lost with thrust you're putting out. He goes, "Hover stop." I said, "Roger, hover stop." And then he pulled the damn throttle item. So I called the power and say, "Wave it off." And he waves it off and slowly nozzles out. Turn around and said, "Okay, let's try that again." He goes, "Okay." So he comes around and he did a fine landing that time. So, okay, we're done. We go and taxi and we get the debrief. And that was when we had the little HUD tapes that you had the TAC player thing for the debrief.
Yep.
We got the debrief and I said, "You're going to have to refly this couple practices." And he's like, "What did I do wrong?" I said, "You don't know what you did wrong?" "No, sir." I said, "Okay." And I queued up his HUD tape. So it's on the first decel. And he's watching it, listening to it, and wave it off. Okay, wave it off. And I see in his eyes, he has no clue what's going on. I said, "Let's do that again." Do it again. He goes, he doesn't have a clue. And so I said, "Okay, close your eyes this time." And he closed his eyes and he goes through, and you just hear on the tape the throttle going, and his eyes open real wide. And he goes, "I don't. Yes, you did it. You can
did.
sign this twice."
And you're lucky to be here to fly it twice.
So, and I'm sure I was the same way. Students get so focused
Oh, sure.
on, they've got book knowledge at that point. So the procedures are XYZ. That's all I can worry about, meeting the procedures without realizing what the big picture is.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they go X, Y, B, C, it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting that left hand
That's
smart
right.
was half the battle in that airplane. Yeah. It was probably 90%.
Oh, boy.
I was on a refresher in the T-88A, and I had my on-wing was in the back seat, and he was a great on-wing, thought he taught me well. And we're landing on 5 left, runway 05 left at Cherry Point, left to right crosswind. Tower tells you that when you're landing. I'm coming in for a rolling vertical landing, about 55 knots, and the wind is blowing from the left to the right. And in the Harrier, you always want to keep the nose centered on the wind, keep the vane centered. And that's what they pump. The vane centered, you won't die. Okay. So we're coming in, and I got the left rudder shaking, kicking my leg. That's probably why my knees are sore today. Just kicking my leg. I got the plane, I've got to crab it. Otherwise, we're blowing off the runway. And I land one, boom, ugly as can be. Try that again. We try. My on-wing, he was calm as could be.
Fearless.
Try that again. I do the same exact thing. He's yelling, "Center the vane." And he never yelled at me. "Center the damn vane." I'm like, "The vane is center." Boom. And then he goes, "Okay, taxi off at Alpha Taxi." So I get up at the taxiway and he goes, "Rich, what are you doing?" "I don't know. I'm centering the vane. The plane's broken." And he goes, and I see him looking, then he looks up like that. And then he slumps in the back. I can see that in the mirror. So I'm like, and he goes, "Look up, sir. Look up at my vane." And the T-88A has the vane in front of the front seat, and it's got one on the canopy above right in front of the back seat. And I'm looking at my vane and it's dead center. I looked up at his vane and it's off like this.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, "Okay, well, look at my vane." It's up like this. And he goes, "Okay, we're going to have to correct that. This time, Don't look at your vein. And I went around and landed okay, I guess. Oh, yeah. Another vein. It is centered.
Yeah. So the rudder. So that was the T. That was the T-bird, right? The
That was the T-bird. Yeah.
T-Aviate-A.
T-Aviate-A.
So it had the rudder shaker to tell you what rudder you had to press.
Oh yeah.
I'll be there.
And it was working on that
Okay.
plane.
For the non-Harrier pilots in the crowd, that we actually just had this little weather vane sitting right out in front of the canopy that told you whether you had a crosswind or a relative crosswind on the airplane, because we had a thing called the death equation. And it was yaw times angle of attack times airspeed. And if that equaled 1, when you multiplied those things out, you got an adverse yaw departure, and you wound up dying. And
1 0, and it's always 0.
anything is multiplied by 0 is 0. So as long as you kept your weather vane centered, we were multiplying by 0, and the death equation couldn't come into effect. So yeah,
That's right. That's
Any
right.
positive result is a negative result.
That's right.
yes.
For some reason, in my mind, I thought the A model, not only was it harder to fly, but I didn't know it had the creature comfort of the little rudder shaker to tell you which rudder you need to push.
I've got very limited experience. Like I said, we did maybe 10 sorties, always with an instructor. And, but I do remember, because it's of course British, all of our checklists sort of went from the left side and around. The pre-start checklist, post-start, you always sort of went around the cockpit.
Right.
And all I remember is trying to remember, okay, I got one here, one there, one over there, one over there. It had no semblance of sport. But
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to the Queen.
it's still trying to get us.
So you left there. You went down to 331. You did almost 5 years before you left. You were an instructor for almost 4 days before you got called back to go to the war. You had some fun at 331 to include, you gave one back to the taxpayers, did you not?
I did.
Well, let's talk about that.
You mind chatting about that?
Yeah, let's go through that.
June 5th of 87. I was flying to do, Wolf and I were going to do a static display at Westover, Massachusetts at an air show. So my parents lived in South Shore, south of Boston, and about 25-minute drive from South Wayne. So we were going to fly from Cherry Point to South Weymouth, land, have lunch, and then have lunch, get some fuel, and then pop over to Westover and park it for the weekend for the air show. I was first lieutenant. I don't know how many. I had like maybe 300, 350 hours. Been in the squadron a year, roughly.
Okay. That's pretty good.
We get up to 33,000 feet. We're flying the airways about 20 miles or so, 25 miles off the Jersey coast. And Will says, "Hey, Nightmare, check the weather for McGuire." I said, okay. So I switched up Air Force Base McGuire, Metro, to get a update on the weather at South Weymouth and Westover. And so I key the mic, McGuire Metro, looking for an update on the weather South Weymouth next 30 minutes. Roger that, stand by. So I'm standing by. And I remember I had my hands up, just chilling out. And that was back when we had 2 radios, and we had the KY-58s, I think they were, which was the encrypted, you could encrypt it
Right.
and
Right.
covered, so that nobody could eavesdrop on you. And we put that on the back radio because you had to click the mic a couple times to clear it, to talk in the clear and get out of the covered stuff, which would just be a squelch in your ear. Well, I'm fat, dumb, and happy, waiting for the guy to come back and give me the Metro. And just like in the simulator, we go, everything winds down, the seals pop on the canopy, and it just flamed out.
Hey, Nightmare, what altitude were you guys at?
33,000.
Oh, shit. Okay.
33,000. And we were just fat, dumb, and happy. I remember thinking, well, flame out. I want to get somewhat to the coast.
Now you're just fat and dumb when it flames out. You're no longer happy.
And you're really just a soda machine. And the plane, I remember talking to Chaos about windmilling, and you get high pressure and everything. Well, what had happened to me, we found out later, is in the accessory gearbox, make it simple, the gears had unmeshed. The main gear had a bolt that had lost its torque. It unscrewed, the gears unmeshed. So both of my hydraulics pumps and the big one, my fuel pump, weren't working. So the engine could get no gas, hence the flame up. But the windmilling engine didn't give me any hydraulic pressure because the gears were disconnected to the high pumps. So the stick went right, like when it's sitting on the flight line, it just sat there pretty stick. And of course, it doesn't move. The rudder pedals are hydraulically boosted. So I still had rudder pedals. But the plane sort of went over in a nosedive and went about 85 degrees nose down and somewhat slightly inverted. And I remember thinking to myself and said, you know what? I'm going to wait till 14,000 feet. When I see 15,000 feet on the standby altimeter, that's when I'll eject. Because in the seat, when you eject above 14,000 feet, you don't get seat man separation right away. You get a drogue chute that comes out. You ride the seat down to about 14,000 feet, and then you get the main parachute comes out. You have seat man separation. Well, I remember thinking, I don't want to wait to see if all that's going to work.
Oh, shit.
So I'll just wait till I get down to 14,000 feet, pull the handle, and work her again. Never crossed my mind at what speed I would be traveling after falling another 15,000 feet.
Right.
I was going through, as I'm thinking that, I kicked in a bootload of right rudder, and the plane actually wallowed out of it, and it came up, and I'm like, this is cool. I started
It kind of leveled off a little bit.
It leveled off at about 27,000 feet, and it would go up, and then I'd run out of airspeed, and it would stall again, and it would flop down, and then I kicked the other rudder in. So I started falling least all the way down, trying to keep some airspeed up. Well, I had the radio, and I couldn't talk to Wolf anymore on the radio because the back radio, the KYs kicked in, and we were all covered. And on the front radio this time, the poor kid who's probably a gentleman of the Air Force, comes back and goes, hey, Magic, this is McGuire Major. I have your self-weapons advisor ready to copy. I key the mic and said, hey, McGuire, how about this? How about the New Jersey coast in about 5 minutes? And he paused and he goes, say again. And I told him I'd had a flame out. I could meet somebody to come me up. Oh, I don't remember, but I guess I had a cut from our last tack, and I remembered in my mind. I told him a tack end cut from, I think it was Atlantic City, on about where I was, and because I still couldn't talk to Wolf. I didn't know where Wolf was. I didn't know if he'd go out and flamed out because I was behind him and sort of fight a wing.
Oh shit!
So passing 25,000 on the standby, below 24, I started trying to do a relight, and of course it's clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack. You can hear the igniters going. Yeah. And you also hear the loudest noise you'll hear is the sound of a dead engine windmilling when you're not on the ground. And it's just like like on the flight line, wind's blowing down the intake and you click, 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 click.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
hear
all the fan blades are all loose because they're not centrifugally held out. Yep. Oh, man.
And the pressurized cockpit's no longer pressurized. So I'm getting all these shafts, click, nothing's happening. So I'm like, this is kind of a pain in the neck. Passing 17,000 feet, the APU back then, I think they've modded them later on. Back then, we couldn't turn the APU on until we were below 17,500 feet.
Okay.
So passing 17, I turned the auxiliary power unit on, which is a little standby generator. That keyed everything up, and I was able to clear my frequency that I was talking to my lead on, Wolf. He and Mike said, hey, Wolfie Nightmare, you got me? He goes, yeah. I said, I've got a flame out. He goes, yeah. I could tell. And he's been, meanwhile, sort of S-turning, trying to stay up because I'm barely making 225 knots because I keep stalling and then coming up and then stalling the other way. And I said, I talked to McGuire. They know about it. They goes, yeah, well, I've talked to the Coast Guard. He got on the radio and talked to the Coast Guard. He got help coming our way. And he goes, well, why don't you try a relay?
And you go, yeah, what do you think I've been doing?
And I'm like, you idiot, what do you think I've been trying to do? 10,000 feet. I'm like, I'm just sitting here. And so I said, yeah, I'm switching to manual fuel now. So I switched to manual fuel. That's a good idea. And so I start trying that, and that doesn't work. And the air start, I said, you know what, right idea. Why don't I try a translational start like we do on the ground?
Oh, sure.
And that's where you let the APU run, and it starts turning the starter. And then when the engine starts spooling enough, you add a little fuel, the engine will kick off, and you got a relay. And what a brilliant idea I had. So I do that, and the APU winds down, and then the starter starts rotating. Now I'm looking for something to help. So in my mind, I hear it all going like it's supposed to. And the RPM starts blowing up. So windmill and RPM, I guess, was 8 to 10%. I'm not sure what it was, but it starts going up. There's 11, there's 12%, there's 13%. This is awesome. I give it a little fuel, 14%, 15%. Man, I've got to relight it. I never looked at the JPG, which is still winding down around 100, going to 98.
Yeah.
Because the engine's not hot, but that RPM, because the auxiliary power unit is turning the engine and the starter,
Right.
not actual engine.
No
So it
far.
goes up, it gets around 18, I forget what it was, 18, 19, it might be 21%. And then the starter drops off like, I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I tried one more of those and it did the same thing. Of course, I realized what it happened. I guess we're about 5,000 feet at this time. And I realized I'm sort of stuck ejecting because I didn't really want to ride it in. And told Wolf, hey, Wolf, let's make a left turn. We're heading toward the coast. I said, hey, Wolf, I'm going to try to come left here and parallel the coast. I'm going to have to get out of this thing. He goes, roger that. So he turned and parallel the coast. And
you're doing this just with rudder, right?
yeah, only rudder. I only had the stick is stuck. I'm not moving that because I had zero hydraulic.
Stab is frozen. Ailerons are frozen. All you have is the rudder.
Neither rudder. I might have had a little trim, but I don't remember that ever really helping.
Okay.
So we get south. We're passing up 4,500 feet. I'm like, okay, well, I got to get out of this. He goes, roger that. Good luck. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Hey, Rick, where are you at? You're not going to hit me, are you? And I look back and he's at 5. No, I'm clear. I said, okay, good. Really going to get out of this thing there. He goes, okay. There's about 3,800 feet. Okay, you going? Yeah, I'm really going. Yep, I'm all excited. And finally get down to about, I didn't know if the seat's going to work. I mean, everything else wasn't working that day.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so then I guess around 3,000 feet, I kicked him out and said, okay, Wolfie, I'm going to get out of this thing. I'll see you at the club. And pull the handle. And it's pretty neat. I always told myself, not that I wanted to, but if you ever eject, you ought to keep your eyes open and see what's going on. So I kept my eyes open and you actually get a feel. And in my mind, I'm hearing, but I'm sure I didn't hear anything. But you're feeling each vertebrae compressing from your, as the seat's coming in.
Right.
And the seat's coming up. And then I start out of my peripheral, I start seeing some smoke down around my knees. That's the rocket exhaust. And behind me, I know the word rocket's shot out. And the canopy both starts doing this as the seat's pushing me out. And the seat pushes me out. And it's just about 1.5 seconds from you pulling the handle to you getting the seat man separation at the speeds I was going. I was below 225 knots. And the chute ballistic spreader. So as soon as it reaches the end, the ballistic spreader shoots. It basically stops my forward momentum, shoots me, and I swung up. And I remember seeing the sun between my legs and looking up and seeing the parachute in the ocean. And then I swung back down. All right. And I'm like, I got the feeling of hanging. So I said, well, I'm not really falling that fast, and that's good. And I pulled up my PRC 90, the Prick 90, and it's on guard. I called up guard and said, hey, Wolf, Nightmare, I'm okay. He goes, right to that. Your plane's turning to the beach. And
no.
pull the riders and I look in the plane. Once I left it, that's about a, 50-60-degree cut toward the,
Right towards Atlantic City Beach.
Barrier Island. Barrier Island's just north of Barnegat Bay. And it coasted. It went low over the beach. It wasn't a beach that's easily accessed. So it didn't hurt anybody. Landed in the marsh there about, 6-7 feet of water. And so
Probably didn't explode, did it? Because
it didn't explode. The major damage looking at it was everything from forward of the intake, when the cockpit is forward, ended up going underneath the plane when it crashed.
Okay.
Or crashed, the front end bottomed underneath it. So it was a good thing the seat worked.
Yeah, right. That would have been good for.
And then I'm flowing down. I'm on the radio, and Wolf says, "Hey, the coasters have sent to Hilo, and there's a couple ships north of your position." I said, "Roger that." And McGuire had told me that they were getting their stuff. SAR effort going from McGuire Air Force Base. So I said, "Roger that." I said, "Okay, I'm going swimming." Talked to you a couple of minutes. Remember, put Prick 90 in my vest here, and I had pulled the raft free. It dropped down and dropped in the water. Get in the water, pull the raft to me. And the dumb thing I did is, and I should have known better, but I forgot to release my seat pin when I grabbed the raft. So I'm trying to get in the raft with my seat pin on, and then which is the top of the metal cover that your life raft sits in.
Right.
So it's
got all your survival gear in it, right? Your chiclets and your knife and
Yep.
Yeah.
charms. I got charms in mine, not chickens.
Yeah.
And I did eat those. But I disconnected that, jumped in the raft, and then sat there for only 20, 30 minutes. And a sailboat that had seen me punch out turned around. And it was an old couple that had wintered in Florida, and they were sailing back home to Cohasset, Massachusetts.
Oh.
Summer in their sailboat. Well, my hometown is right next door to Cohasset.
Yeah.
So they saw me, I waved them over. They brought me, and they were shaking. They were an elderly couple, and they were physically shaking. And they're like, "Hi, call the Coast Guard." I said, "I'll do it for you, sir." So I talked to talked to the Coast Guard, and they said they were sending a surf boat out for me. And the gentleman was so nice. He said, "Would you like a shot of whiskey, sir?" I said, "I better wait till after they take my blood, but feel free to have one yourself." And they had one. The Coast Guard came up alongside. I jumped aboard the cutter and thanked the couple from the sailboat. They brought me back to Barnegat Bay, to the Coast Guard station there, and a Dolphin, Coast Guard aircraft helicopter, and landed in the softball field. I walked across the field, got the Dolphin. They took me, we flew to Lakehurst by way of my crashed plane, so I got a good view of it. We landed in Lakehurst, and Wolf had diverted into Lakehurst because he was going to be low on fuel.
Oh,
So we
okay.
diverted to Lakehurst, and it was a Friday, and we went and we did all the, I had my physical. They did the full physical on me, and I really basically uninjured, a sore back, sore neck, some burns around my neck from where the miniature detonation cord that shatters the plastic, the canopy on the
Right.
had exploded. But really, for what it was, I was pretty scot-free. So after they did that, it was time to go to happy hour. And
Wow.
we went to happy. We were the biggest thing to hit Lakehurst since the Hindenburg. It was a big night. It was a good night.
So
That's awesome.
I'm amazed right now. It really sounds like you were conscious for the entire
was.
sequence, ejection sequence.
I was. I never lost.
Because most people, lose a couple seconds there.
Yeah, I had a lot of time I had basically 8 minutes, I think it was a free fall. I think I still have the record for the longest free fall in a dead Harrier.
Wow.
But,
Wow.
So I had a lot of time. Yeah. I mean, if the seat doesn't work, at least I get final few seconds.
Yeah.
See what's
Right.
going
There you
on.
go.
Without
There you go.
giving any details, I know your stature, but you're a pretty big human.
I am. I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, 208
Yeah.
pounds.
Which is pretty
Ben-
big for
Ben, I'm now.
yeah, which is pretty good size for a single.
It is, which if you look into it, helped me.
Yes,
It
that's what I
helped
was
me
getting at.
because the seat is very unstable when it ejects in that mode. In the low altitude, low airspeed mode, it's very unstable because everything happens so quick. So lighter bodies, the seat's going to shift and it might twist a little bit, which could lead to problems when the parachute opens, because it has happened. People have had their hangman fracture the neck and it's killed them. But being a heavier body, thank you, Pasta, it's not a lot, but it is somewhat more stable as the seat leaves the aircraft and the chute opens. So it helped me out, I think.
That's a great story. And you're right. Just because you have the ability to eject from an airplane, that could be where the problems start. There's a lot of things that can go wrong during an ejection.
There are.
Did you remember, did you see the airplane impact or did you lose sight of it before?
I did not see the impact, the aircraft impact. I was about 135 degrees offset.
Okay.
When the plane turned back here, I'm looking over here. But when Wolfie said it's turning towards shore, I remember taking my riser and pulling around like that and seeing the plane turn. And the damn thing turned and then it rolled wings level. So
Right.
I'm like, and then I was like, this is uncomfortable. I'm done with that.
Well, at least you had it trimmed up nice. I mean, that shows that you have excellent pilot skills.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were trimmed.
That's what I'd say, but there's a lot of people who disagree with that.
Too funny.
Hey, how far off the coast were you when you pulled the handle? Would you say
I was
2
probably
miles?
about 5 miles offshore when I landed in the water. Probably
Oh my
about
God,
20
the
to
airplane-
25 when I flamed down.
So from 3,000 feet, that plane had enough, glide in it to make it to the beat. That's
Well,
impressive.
you know what? Maybe it might have been less than 5 and I just blew 5 miles out because the coach just told me that they picked me up 5 miles offshore.
Okay.
So
Right. And then one of the terms you used in there was the word motor. And that, as I recall, is the wind-oriented rocket device. Is that something like that? to help align the seat into the wind. So when your chute deploys, you aren't going into it.
Out and tries to align everything. So when the parachute opens, it's aligned with everything's aligned.
Right. Your body isn't going into the opening chute. And you talked about the spreader, which is this like, for lack of a better word, it's like a little shotgun charge that with these lead balls in there that pull the drogue chute open so that it, actually it's the main chute, right?
They pull the main chute open.
Main chute. So it spreads it open. So in a low altitude environment, you get the chute deploying much faster because you may need it from 50 feet or zero.
Most ejection seats, or a lot of ejection seats, once without spreading up, rely on momentum, movement.
Right.
So with a zero seat, zero forward momentum, zero airspeed, zero altitude, something other than the air needs to help open that parachute so it can grab the air.
Right.
Otherwise, you could end up with a streamer.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty impressive seat. It's a stencil seat, as I recall. Is that?
It was stencil, yep. It's stencil, and then I think they bought it.
Hey, did Stencil give you like a watch or something, or for riding the seat?
I got a little grasshopper with a ruby eye because you become a member of the Grasshopper Club, and then Stencil gave me a tie pin that was another tie pin, but okay. I think the Grasshopper Club came about in the old days when parachutes were made of silk. And I don't know why it's a grasshopper, but I don't think grasshoppers make silk. I think it's caterpillars.
Yeah.
Caterpillars turn into a grasshopper. I don't bloody know.
Yeah.
I got a little grasshopper with a ruby in it.
Well, caterpillar clips aren't as sexy as grasshoppers.
Well, and then the other one, we had a guy talk about his ejection, and he was really pissed because he realized at the last minute that he let go of the ejection seat handle. He's like, "Oh, damn it.
But
did you keep
yours? It wouldn't matter because it doesn't detach.
It doesn't detach
on
that
the
seat.
stencil seat. It stays attached. You can pull it. It's got about, 3-4 inches of movement in it, but it remains attached to the seat. So if he had held on, he would have fallen a lot quicker on the right.
So today, do you feel that ejection in your back, in your neck,
yes,
anywhere? Or?
Yeah. Especially when the weather changes.
Yeah, that's something. Because that's a pretty violent event.
That's awesome, though, that you were in the club that night.
But it all worked out well.
And you were drinking in the club?
A thing that would never happen today, that was Friday. Saturday, the Cherry Point used to have the old Saberliners as their...
Right. The T-39.
SOES planes. So they flew the mishap investigation team from Cherry Point up to Lakehurst on the Saberliner. And I jumped on it, flew back to Cherry Point. This is Saturday. Monday morning, I go to work, and the CO pulls me in his office and has a one-to-one with me. He, Vietnam era, F4 guy, A4s from early on. He says, I've never ejected. I don't know what you're going through. I said, I have no idea what you're going through. I've seen buddies eject, and they say it's better to get back on the horse. Okay, so he goes, when are you ready to fly? And I kind of was like, that's right now, sir. He goes, okay, good. Flight surgeon is going to get you clearance. Go to flight equipment, get some new gear, and we'll take off at 1 this afternoon and go up and pick Wolf up. So I punched out Friday at about 1:05. Monday, right after lunch, I'm on the CO's wing, taking off, flying up to Lakehurst to pick Wolf up, and we flew back as a 3-ship. I'm not sure that would ever happen today with all the 6 months of grounding for a mishap.
That's awesome,
right? That's pretty.
No
that's
kidding.
That's awesome.
And I will tell you, you guys see the movie Airplane,
right?
Yeah,
where the guy's dripping sweat when he's trying to land the plane. That was me taking off that Monday afternoon. I looked for any excuse to down that person.
The brakes aren't frozen. The hydraulic line isn't broken. So
mad at all the maintenance guys. It's a perfect jet.
Well, it's funny how things work. It's nice that gear held until you were at 30,000 feet, not when you were at 35 feet on the takeoff roll.
That's true.
That would have been more exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot more exciting. So then you find yourself continuing in the gun squadron, no border or anything like that. So that's awesome. Of course, they had the airplane to look at and go, yeah, it's totally.
They actually found out they use an old skyhook to pick up the bird up.
Okay.
put in a flatbed. I forget exactly where they brought it to, maybe Lakers, whatnot. But they took the wing off. And for what I had told them in the debriefing, they took the wing off, took the top of the accessory gearbox off, and found the bolt and the washer and the bolt and everything disconnected. So they knew exactly what had happened. And then they had to go through the process of, okay, why did that bolt unwind? Yada, yada. And go down that. And they did.
Do you know, did they ever fix that? Do you know, did they put a safety wire in that bolt?
What had happened was when the accessory gearbox was reworked, the washer had a little excess metal on it from the manufacturing, and it wasn't sanded or grinded or whatever off. So when they put the bolt in, they torqued the bolt down to the proper torque, but it was against a washer that had excess material, and that excess material wore off, and therefore the torque was no longer valid, and the bolt
backed itself out.
Yeah.
It always fascinates me.
On the gearbox, and they found a couple others that were bad.
Yeah. Having gone to safety school, it always fascinates me, the things that the engineers can find that, things like that. Oh my God, that, the bolt was improperly torqued after the witness marks left enough of the metal on that face of that, the bottom face of that bolt going, clearly there was some metal here that's now gone, and microscopic evidence that's left behind, and they're able to determine what happened from that is astounding. It's a similar one as when we lost our buddy Biscuit over in Spain in 92, I think it was.
91. It was 90.
Was it 91? Yeah, it was November 91. Yeah. They found witness marks on the knuckle of the aileron
actuator.
Yeah, right? the push rod
in the actuator
in the wing. Yeah.
Yes.
But microscopic witness marks from how it had been installed backwards. Oh. Fascinating. What's the word I'm looking for? Post-mortem isn't quite the right word, but anyway, I've wandered down a rabbit hole.
You had a brief exit from 331 and then back to 331 because of the impending Gulf War I,
WW3 Desert One.
Right. So you were 331 was aboard the Nassau?
We were on the Nassau, USS Nausea.
I got a couple of landings on that boat, but that was after that event, obviously. So tell us any memorable boat stories from that.
I mean, you're stuck in the boat with 5,000 other guys. It's not that much fun, but we had some good times. That was, of course, the Harrier carrier. We had 20 Harriers and a handful of old age Tangos and a few Hueys. And so we called it the Harrier carrier with embarked Caesar.
Nice.
We did a lot of flying. We did a lot of low altitude flying because that was back when low altitude is it's how we're going to fight. We're going to beat the Soviets in the Foley Gap, do it flying low. And I mean, when Desert Storm kicked off, everybody found out that, in the first 24 hours, low is not good, high is very good. But flying low is fun. And we flew over a lot of the Oman Desert, chased some camels around.
Nice.
Did some dogfighting with the Jags,
nice.
British Jags. We had some good times.
Okay. Here's one story I know that happened, and I'm sure there's other stories on the boat, but one of my favorites is Thanksgiving. Happened in Thanksgiving of 1990.
Yes, and she did give me a hug.
Well, let's hear it.
That was back. We had just pulled into Abu Dhabi, I believe it is. Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
No liberty allowed. We're like, why the heck not? Well, President Schwarzkopf are coming aboard. So what? No, they don't need us.
And, don't care. We're going drinking.
It's funny. The day before, that's when they issued us all our desert camis. Because we had all embarked. We only had green. And then the president's coming aboard. Let's give all the Marines their desert camis. So we put on the desert camis. President came on, and of course, he's a naval aviator. So I would show him around, and Tiny and Psycho got to show him the cockpit of the Harrier. He gave a speech, gave a talk, and Schwarzkopf gave a talk and everything. And then they had about around the tram line roped off. So we could all stand there and say, hi, Mr. President, as they're walking by. Poor Mrs. Bush. She had been going from LZ to LZ to LZ all day long, saying hello to all the troops all over Kuwait, all over Saudi Arabia as well. Just, it's dusty. It's hot. she probably wasn't that happy to be there, but you wouldn't know it from her attitude. So she's walking by and she had Secret Service around it. And she had a female Secret Service on the far side of her. And she's walking by and she said, "It's just Bush. You're the prettiest thing I've seen for months." And she gets, "Oh, you are so nice." And she runs over and she gives me a hug. And I'm hugging her and I'm looking over her shoulder. And the female Secret Service is there just glaring at me like,
Oh,
"Dude,
yeah.
those hands move. You're getting shot between the eyes."
Right?
Yeah. But it was nice of him to come out.
Oh, buddy.
And then, I don't know if it was next year, then General Kelly came out. It was probably a month later. General Kelly came out. He was the commandant.
Yep.
He came out to give all the Marines a big speech, motivating speech and all. And he gave it to us, and the flight deck is just packed with Marines. And he's up on sort of a stage. He gets done and he goes, "Do I have any questions, Marines?" And some poor Lance Corporal private, probably first time he's ever deployed, raises and I go, "Yes, hard charger." He goes, "Sir, do you have any idea on when we may go home?" Because we had deployed with 5 days notice, 4 days notice, and we deployed in the middle of August. And this is now early December, I think.
Right.
And Gray grabs a mic and goes, "Let me tell you, Marine, something. God may own your soul, but I own you. You'll stay here till I say you can go home. Any more questions?" There were no more.
Oh,
What?
man.
No.
Good old
That's a
Algorithm.
dumb question. Skip that.
So that was Al Gray, not PX Kelly. That was Al
No, not
Gray.
PX. That was Al Gray.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
Kelly would have said it differently.
Yeah, the sledgehammer.
well, when combat operations started, I imagine it was probably equally spread amongst the guys.
It was equally spread. We didn't fly that much combat. We flew mostly the last 7-10 days or so. We were held back for the ground war. They wanted to keep the Harriers under Marine Corps control and not give them to the Air Force CAOC, the combined fleet. So
Combined
they
Air
kept us
Operations Center.
They kept us husband, and then they let us go free a little bit toward the end. The very first combat mission, we flew in divisions, flights of 4. Oscar was the division lead, and I was the second section, and I had Jimbo on my one. We go up, we hit our target area, and we're flying back, and you're coming back once you're in, feet wet. Let's do our battle check. So we check each other over, make sure nobody got any holes or any stuff that wasn't there when you took off. And so Jimbo and I check each other out, give each other thumbs up, and we watch Oscar's when we're going around, looking him over, and then he pauses, and he goes, "Oscar, you're not going to believe this. Well, you've got a bullet hole in your vertical stab." So he's broadcasting, and Oscar's like, "What? You have a bullet hole in your vertical stab?" He goes, "You're kidding." Well, we'd been flying on the boat for months, and we did everything zip lip, where we didn't do any radio calls. We started on the yellow shirt signal. We launched on the yellow shirt signal. We hit the initial 3 minutes prior to our Charlie time. So we landed we did zip lip ops. Well, we also had our Bubba net. So on the back radio, on the second radio, you could talk to each other in the flight and nobody else could hear. So go Magnum. So everyone would switch 357.0, go Bumblebee. You'd switch to 331.0. Well, I don't know what frequency it was, but we were on this frequency, and some trader in the squadron had told friend on the boat. So everybody around the boat is listening to our Cap Freaks just going through the story. So they're hearing us.
Yeah.
What they also heard was, "You've got a bullet hole in your vertical stab." So this boat's been doing nothing for the entire war. And now they hear we got battle damage coming back to the boat. All right. So the docks, they fire up all the docks. The crash, fire, rescue all get their silver suits on. And here we go. We're going to save this. They're going to be shooting these films of us saving this guy, just like the old World War II film. So Oscar's like, "What do you mean I have a bullet hole?" He goes, "Right about in the middle of your vertical stab." And then it hits Oscar and he goes, "Does it have a black marking paint, sort of like a question mark around it?" "Yes." "That's the hole they put the pin to lift the vertical stab up for maintenance." It's just a hole that they put a pin in so that they can lift the vertical stab.
Yeah,
stab
every
off the
one of
plane
them has it.
through maintenance on. So Oscar took off with that hole.
Yeah.
So we're like, "Oh, my bad. no problem. Well, the boat doesn't hear that because they're all there running to save us.
Of course they are.
And it never hit anybody on the boat that we come into the break. So we're at the initial 1,200 feet, drop it down to 8, foreship with a battle damaged flight lead. He takes the break first, runs in and lands. And there's a full rush to his plane on the flight deck. And it's like, hey guys, clear the flight deck. And the air boss like, clear the flight deck. We got 3 others to land because we had 406 engines, which were the older engine. It didn't put out as much thrust as the new ones.
Yeah.
And we were carrying either a deckham pod, which weighed about 800 pounds, or a gun pack, which weighed about 700-800 pounds. So we didn't have a lot of excess. Our set states were pretty low sometimes. We did missions with set state of 800 pounds. So you didn't have a whole lot of waste time. Well, they got the flight cleared. We all come in and land. And I think that was the last time the CO let us have our own tactical net frequency, at least one that was shared with anybody else.
Oh,
and we never
awesome.
got any validation.
That is awesome.
Every one of them has the same hole.
Yeah.
And everyone does.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what type of pre-flight do you do?
Yeah. How many combat missions did you get?
Teens, somewhere in the high teens.
Yeah. Okay. But you went on to a full career. So did you get any, or were you done flying by the time 2003, 2004 rolling around?
2005, I gave up command of 203.
Okay.
And I went over for a ground job on Okinawa. And I didn't fly when I was on the Rock for 4 years. Then when I came back to Second Maw again, I got some flights with 203. And then I also flew with the other squadrons in the wing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Let me jump in the cockpit with them to do piloted planes.
Okay.
It was fun. So I got to ride flying all the platforms that we had at that time, except the Osprey. I don't have any Osprey time.
Hey, Nightmare, how many total hours did you record?
Total somewhere over 3,000, Aviate 2,500.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. Not a lot of guys with 2,000 plus in the Harrier. Anyone with over 2,000 in the Harrier, that's an accomplishment because you did that 45 minutes at a time, an hour at a time, with the rare exception of going from Wake Island to Iwakuni or something like that. But
right, that's a lot of strapping in and unstrapping.
Yeah.
No way around that.
It is.
So if you went from 203, you went up to Airland.
I did.
The best question I have at this point is, what was your favorite job in the entire career from second lieutenant to colonel?
CO. Be the command officer 203.
Nice.
But I had great jobs. In my entire career, I never had anybody that I would consider a subpar or not a great CO. My commanding officers and the commanding generals I ended up working for were always great to work for. Some of them very hard to work for, but always rewarding and great to work for. Even when I worked at Airland, I worked for a Navy captain and the Navy Navy commander. I was a major. They were great guys, very professional, fun to work with, even though you're stuck in the staff door. I was the attack class desk up there, and I was in charge of the East Coast Harriers, maintenance and material. And when Nav Air actually comes up with a change to the Harrier, I helped them implement it on the East Coast Harriers. But as the attack class desk, this was 96, they gave me Harriers, EA-6Bs. There was some Navy A3s, Navy TA-4s in the VC squadrons, and they gave me all things Pioneer that was relatively new at the time, and UAV, the early UAV. So I had to learn a lot of different aircraft from the desk without ever getting the opportunity to fly them. Yeah. But it was fun. The people that I worked there were great. And it was a completely different era, different time, even though it was post-tailhook. But it was, the Airland building is an old building, probably of 40s or 50s. Okay. And it's got the big front building and 3 wings out the back. We were on one end wing. So it's a long wing with the offices on each side, and a long hallway used to buff out. So it's tiled. And at the end of the hallway was the repo room. That was the reproduction room with the Xerox machine. And just to the left of that was the entranceway to the Navy captain's office. And one day, one of the civilians working there, we'll call him Bill. He said, these are just good old Vietnam era guys, good old ones. He comes out and he sits a chair up at the end and the middle of the hall. And he takes his fishing rod and he proceeds to tie an ear of corn to the fishing rod. And so it's like 15 of us, Bill, what are you doing? And he throws the Iroquois, casts the Iroquois down the hallway. I go sliding down the hallway into the repo room. And he starts reeling it in. He goes, I'm hog fishing. And we're like, what the hell? And right then, one of the ladies that worked in the captain's office sticks her head and looks down the hallway because she sees it. And he goes, I'm getting a nibble. I mean, can you imagine that sort of stuff going on today?
Yeah.
Oh,
Dear God, no.
but it was, we had a Christmas party every year. I was there 3 years. And we had a Christmas, it's called a walk around Christmas party. And at noon, every office would have a different drink. So you could go have rum toddies in one room. You go up the operations guys, they'd have whatever. Well, the Marines, I think there were like 17 of us that worked in the building, and there was 300 in the building. We would get to work normally earlier. For me, I lived south of Norfolk and then to drive to the base through Norfolk. So I got there early to beat the traffic. But we'd all get our work done by 7:30 when the sailors would show up, because this was a short duty for them. So it was like their time off. Well, it's a Christmas party day, so I figured, Bailey's goes good. So I'd come in at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and all the Marines are having Bailey's in their coffee. We're giving it to our contractors. The word gets out. We had relations with the F-14 guys up in the office. They'd come down to get some Irish cream, and the building gets the word that there's Irish cream down there, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank God we had a great 3-star admiral, too. About 11 o'clock, the admiral, who used to do wander around, just say hi to you, he comes down and sits on my desk right up next to me with his cup of coffee. Here's a nightmare. Yes, Admiral. I hear. No, he said, it's not new yet, is it? And no, sir. I hear we have Irish cream around here. Where'd you hear that, sir? And he goes, I have my sources. I go, yes, sir. And he goes, well, Major. I said, oh, yes, sir. And I opened up my cabinet. There's like 7 bottles of Bailey's. So I knew I wasn't in trouble that day. And then, of course, next year, everybody heard about it. So I had to buy a whole bunch of the real cheap Irish cream. I think I had like 15 bottles because I ended up having to serve the entire building.
Yeah, you give that to the riffraff and you save the good stuff.
Yeah, we got the Bailey's and the Marines.
Right on.
And the Admiral.
Yeah, you can't serve the cheap stuff to the Admiral. He rates your fitness report, right?
Yeah. I didn't have a bad job. XO, I was XO 542 for Satchmo. XO's never fun because
well, you're the hammer.
You're the heavy.
The mean guy, which probably worked out for me. You never get the goods. It's like chief of staff. That was a very rewarding, very fun job, primarily because I worked for great general officers. But no one ever calls the chief of staff to say, hey, chief, things are going great. I hope you have a good weekend. Normally the calls at 1 a.m. are like, hey, chief, I gotta run this by you. And so you remember when we used to get in the mail, the government would send you a letter as your active duty says, your job is a Harrier pilot. Were you in the civilian world, you would be an airline pilot. You would have these benefits. But look at all the wonderful benefits you're getting being in the Marine Corps. And they did that from all of the different military occupation specialties. So, but when you're chief of staff, you get one of those letters too. They say, you're chief of staff, you do this. If you were in the civilian world, your job equates to the guy with the shovel and the wheelbarrow following the elephants down Main Street for the circus, just shoveling up after. That's what a chief of staff is.
A great big filter for the boss. Oh.
Well, that was it. That was an awesome career, Nightmare.
It was a fun one. It was rewarding. I mean, look at me. I can't get a real job outside the uniform, so might as well stay in for 30.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly. What are you doing now?
I work at the Mid-Atlantic Electronic Warfare Range, simulating threats, simulating SAM threats, and surface threats for fleet naval forces and other squadrons and units. So we pretend we're the bad guys.
Nice. No, you are the bad guys. It's okay. You're the bad guy.
I've been told that.
He's an actual nightmare. Crying out loud.
Yeah.
He is a nightmare. What was the best part of being the CO at 203? I mean, that's kind of cool. You're the king. It's good to be the king.
You're the king. And 203, most Harrier pilots after their first or second tour, they've done a couple pumps over, so they're ready for a little bit of home time, and they want to come to 203 and instruct.
Right.
And normally they have the qualification off. So as a CO at 203, you get to sort of somewhat to an extent pick and choose who you want to instruct for you.
That's nice.
So I ended up with a really good crowd of guys that I never had to worry about. They knew what to do. They knew how to do it right most of the time. And I did think I was going to get relieved my first July. I took over in March, and we had a student go out on an air-to-air sortie, and airplane departed. He had to eject. So he ejects, gets picked up by Pedro, the SAR helo, and gets taken home. Within a week, on a Wednesday, there was a det in Yuma doing a air-to-ground bombing det from the squadron, and they had a canopy implode on them at 23,000 feet or 1 minute. So they lost the canopy, fired the engine. The guys make it back to Yuma, landed safely. Good job. But that's a class problem. So now we've got a class A, which is the big, very bad mishap. We got a class B, which is the next best thing to a really bad mishap. And then I get a call Saturday morning, and it's one of my instructors. Hey, Skipper, just wanted to make sure that you knew about the canopy that we lost. Oh, yeah, I know all about that. I already briefed the boss. We're good to go. Okay, just want to make sure, Skipper. Thanks, fine. 5 minutes later, I get the call back from the same guy. Hey, Skipper, yeah, just wanted to make sure you knew about the canopy we lost this morning out at Seymour Johnson. I go, what? Oh, so another class problem. I had to run up the chain. And none of them, I mean, the canopies, you guys know the canopies, we were having some issues with. Some of the canopies failed.
Coming open?
At that period.
Did it slide open?
They don't open. The canopy, the plexiglass shattered.
Okay.
One at Seymour Johnson, it might have opened. I'm not sure. I mean, I had one that opened with the general, and we were airborne at the time.
Fun times. Yeah. What years were you the skipper at?
I was March of 03 to March of 05.
Okay. Here's one. I don't know if you can shed any additional information on this. This is always one of my favorite stories for the Wives Network, as it were. But I'm 99.9% sure you were airborne with a student at 203, and I was sitting on the desk, and for whatever reason, I don't know, that day that Easy jumped out up by Raleigh. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get, was that a bird strike? Was that a bird strike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So my recollection of that was you call, I've got the desk, and I go, okay, and I call down at 231 and go, hey, you guys lost a jet. You know, more information to follow, stand by. And then you call back and say, okay, Pedro's talking to him. All right, I call back down. Pedro's talking to him. He, so he's alive, yada, yada, yada. And about, I don't think you were privy to this. About 3 or 4 minutes later, the phone rings, and it's my wife. And she goes, who's Shank 03? I go, what? I'm looking at the phone. One, why do you want to know? And two, how the hell do you know? And she goes, well, I just want to make sure it isn't Pete, who's another friend of ours, Bummer. I don't know if you remember Bummer or not, but she wanted to make sure it wasn't Bummer. I go, yeah, it's not him, go away. So, and I talked to her later that night and found out Demo's wife was a tower controller in Kinston and heard all this go down on guard.
Oh, really?
And called my wife and said, hey, find out who Shank 03 is. So literally my wife and the Wives Network knew before the squadron CO not only that they'd lost an airplane, but who it was.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. The Wives is pretty, Wise, when I had that class A where the student jumped out of it, his flight lead, the instructor said, hey, no shoot. It just went in the water. There's no shoot. This is off of Cape Lookout. And so we're like, great. So Pedro went out to try to find the body, and they gave me the CACO letter in the ready room. So I opened a sign. CACO letter is a casualty letter that every pilot writes, and they keep it in the CO's safe. So if somebody has a mishap and doesn't make it out, the person is telling the CO who he wants to notify his family, his next of kin, any specific things he wants and stuff. And I read it. I'm on the couch, and a couple of the guys asked, Skipper, you're going to go get the wife and tell the wife? I said, not yet. And they go, why not? I said, let's just give it a little time. And then Pedro came back and said, hey, we found him. And they ended up picking him up. We found him and he's fine. Like, outstanding. So Pedro radioed the tower. Tower called the ready room, said, we got your pilot. He's okay, uninjured, and we're bringing him home. I said, okay. So then I said, sir, you're going to go tell the wife? I said, no. They go, why not? I said, what's the first thing a wife is going to ask me? What do you mean? She's going to ask, how do you know he's okay? You just heard that. She said, so I'm going to wait till Pedro lands. I'm going to meet him on the bird. I'm going to say, hi, welcome home. And then I'm going to go tell his wife. So
good plan.
Pedro lands. I go on. Glad you're okay. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to take you over to the hospital, give you your medical law. So I drive off base in the Havelock to a church where the wife is volunteering or doing a function with a church. And I'm in my flight suit. And I never left the base with my flight suit, but I wanted to get to her as quick as possible. And so I get in the parking lot. I think, if I walk in there, she knows who I am. And she's going to immediately think the worst thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So I grabbed two Marines, obviously, and said he's walking out. I pulled him over saying, listen, and I tell him the story. I said, do you know this lady? Oh, yeah, we know her. I said, will you go tell her that everything's fine? And then I'll come in and talk to her. They go, yes, sir. So they did that. Great on them. And she's fine. So I brought her out and I said, do you want me to drive her to the hospital? That's where he is. He's fine. I've talked to him. And she goes, no, I'll drive over with my girlfriend. So they drive over with the girlfriends. And the wives' net is out, especially among the students. So the hospital is like 10 wives, including the colonel, the group CO's wife there, who the wives club was tight.
Oh, you bet.
So I go there. Hi, how are you? Whatever. And I stand over, and there's about 10 instructors. And I don't know why we all ended up there, but we all ended up there just to welcome them back, I guess. And we're talking about all the other mishaps we've had. Because my XO, he had ejected out of a T2. It was pretty broken. Broken neck, broken femur. He was badly broken up. The son of the hunter that found him hanging in the tree looked up, turned away, and threw up. Because he was in bad shape, but he's fine, and he's flying the Harrier again. And so we're telling all the stories about, oh, I remember when such and such punched out. Oh, yeah, this man. And all we hear is sobs on the other side of the room. We're like, what the heck? Everything's fine. And then the group CO comes on and goes, hey, Nightmare. Yes, sir. Could you keep it down? You're really upsetting the wives. I'm like, oh, sorry, didn't think. We were upsetting the wives, talking about all the ejections when one of the husbands had punched. But it's like, it's fine. When you're fine, it's good.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I was there for a second. I could totally see that going down.
Yeah. Open mouth, insert foot, shoot to knee.
Right. What a great career. That has been so much fun talking with you, Nightmare. We appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me.
Hey, and thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Yours too. Thank you.
Indeed. It was great to see you last year at the reunion. I think hopefully you can do the next one. I think Curly's in charge of that.
We're going to plan on it. You have to bring your daughter to it. She's a pilot now, right?
She is. She's working on her commercial.
You'll have to bring her to the next one.
So got to trying to talk her to go at least into the Air Guard, somewhere where she can, fly cool airplanes and do cool stuff. So
and have stories to come on here and tell you about.
Right? Exactly. I'm not sure I want her story. Oh, no.
Please, I'm with you, brother.
Exactly. So, and my youngest one wants to fly too. So, if you have $250,000 I can borrow, and by borrow I mean have and not give back, you just send that my way, and I'll give.
If I ever come up with it, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'll get my kids up to speed. So, anyway, well, so thank you for your service, indeed. Thank you for the time you spent with us. I also want to thank Dave Hamilton over at the Mac Geek Gab, who has helped us put this whole thing together. We are having a ball. The show is growing. Everybody's sharing. Thank you for sharing. Down to 13 more people, I think, at last look. 13 more people to join and follow us on Rumble so that we get to 100 and we don't have to pay in order to bring this to you in a live stream with all its warts during the show. So this is all raw. It stays up on Rumble. You hear all the goofs and the guffaws and the mic bangs, and I forgot to start recording on another show. Everything else, all the stupidity. But then you get this fine product that you're listening to now if you're listening on a podcast. I go back through and edit that. But if you'd follow us on Rumble, that would be great. Also, please don't forget to go over to robinsbirdbraindesigns.com. If you need a customized gift for anybody, coasters, something along those lines, they're etched with your call sign and your squadron logo or an airplane instrument and your tail number. If you want your iPad etched or your laptop etched, she can do all that kind of stuff. Reach out to robinsbirdbraindesigns.com, talk to her, figure out, and it shows you've put a lot of thought and effort into getting a nice gift for somebody. Let's see, what else? Follow us on Rumble, so there I was.us/Rumble. Follow us on Facebook, so there I was.us/Facebook. So there I was.us/Twitter for the Twitter feed. Email feedback to us at fig@sothereiwas.us or RePete@sothereiwas.us. And these fine folks that you are hearing now in the background, the Dos Gringos.
Yeah, they make the Air Force look good.
Great band. Good. Great band. I think I have every one of their songs on their albums.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
They are fun to listen to.
They're timeless. They never get old.
No, it's good stuff. Let's see. What else have I forgotten, Fig? I know I've forgotten something. Oh, glossary, our website. Got a glossary on the website. So if you've heard a term that you don't understand, go look on the website. You may have heard it. It may be written down there. If it's not, then shoot us an email and tell us, hey, get that on there so we can figure out what on earth you're talking about. Because we know we do hit a lot of acronyms here, and we try to cover them, but we don't get them all. I got nothing else, Fig. What else?
Thanks for listening, and check 6. What do you think?
Exactly. No, I think you're exactly right. Thanks for listening to the show. Till next week, stay safe and check 6.
No, man. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's over.
Woohoo! When this is over, I'm hitting the sauce.